What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. And as you can tell, this isn't an NFL episode. This isn't a NASCAR episode. It's a hockey episode because the NHL is back. And you're most likely going to see this on Tuesday because what better way to celebrate the start of the NHL season than with an NHL season preview and predictions? And you know what the good thing is? Yeah, maybe I should have put it out over the weekend for you guys. And for that, I'm sorry. But I at least the NHL episode. You could listen to that entire first week. Yeah, there might be some games, but it's so long. There's still plenty of time to change. And one game at the beginning of the season doesn't mean anything. And I figured let's celebrate the start of the season the right way on Tuesday, with a season preview and predictions, just like I did last year. So without further ado, let's preview this great sport in this great league that will be going on until June in the Stanley Cup Finals. Without further ado, let's get into talk about the offseason. Lots of big player movement, and some of this isn't even player movement. As you can see, my number one biggest news of the offseason to me, Connor McDavid signs on for 2 more years in Edmonton. Somebody that was going to be a highly coveted free agent decides to stay with the team that drafted him, the team he's been with his whole career with the Oilers, signing a 2-year extension with Edmonton. That's pretty big storyline. It keeps probably the best player in the NHL. Not probably, it keeps the best player in the NHL at home. Still trying to win one for Edmonton. Mitch Marner, a lot was talked about him last year. Talked about him in the playoffs, and I think him and Toronto splitting, going their separate ways was coming for a long time. Marner, as part of a sign and trade, goes to the Vegas Golden Knights from Toronto, signs an 8-year deal. Toronto getting Roy back, which I think could be a very good piece for them. Both teams are looking very different now. Mitch Marner, no longer a Maple Leaf, but a Golden Knight. Another big contract extension, the richest contract extension in NHL history. Kirill Kaprizov stays in Minnesota for 8 years. And what is it, $136 million? Largest contract in NHL history for a player that's pretty good and still will be in his prime for most, if not all, of those years. Somebody who can score 50 goals when he stays healthy, somebody who can get you 100 to 120 points. I still think his best attribute is his goal scoring, but Kaprizov deciding to stay in Minnesota, another big name player who will not hit free agency. In terms of direct impact onto this season, my biggest move here, number 4, it's really a trio of moves, and it could be the biggest, most consequential group of moves in the NHL this offseason, with the Florida Panthers keeping Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, and Aaron Ekblad. Obviously, they already have one injury, being out for the year. But Marchand, Bennett, this keeps Florida's core together, which is very important. Florida working salary cap magic. I'm not going to get down the rabbit hole of taxes and state tax and why it's an unfair advantage, why it probably actually isn't. I already did that on Twitter when we were discussing this on the offseason. If you want my thoughts on that, just go search back over the summer when everybody was complaining about it. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm on the side of it's not an unfair advantage and people need to grow up. But yes, Florida keeping their key pieces of Marchand, Bennett, and Ekblad. Again, I know Florida already has quite a few injuries, but I think I think being able to find a way to keep the guys that they did. It's just anytime you can keep your core together, it's a good sign, right? Um, and Florida wants the three-peat, so there you go. Moving on, another pretty big signing this offseason. The Hurricanes signed Nikolaj Ehlers for 6 years, $53 million. Hurricanes had a lot of cap space, and they already had a really good team that went to the conference finals last year. And then they had a lot of cap space. They're like, why don't we just go for the Stanley Cup? And Ellers is certainly going to help bring some depth, some scoring, give them some center depth as well. His health has been a question at times in his career. Um, I'll be interested to see. He'll definitely have more opportunity than I think he did in Winnipeg. I think he'll be expected to do more, and to be determined if I think he's going to do that or not. But the signing, you can't argue that it doesn't make the Hurricanes better. Big signing. Hurricanes looking to be a very formidable team this season. Canadians pick up Noah Dobson from the Islanders. Steep price. They gave up 2 first-round picks, but Dobson, something I think the type of player I think this Canadians team needs. I really respect the Canadians. They have a lot of really, really good young players. Most are on, rookie, pretty cheap deals. And they said, you know what, we made the playoffs last year unexpectedly. We have a good team. Why don't we go out and try and win now while people are on cheaper deals? I think that could be a good idea, and I think the Canadians could be set up for at least a decade. Again, steep price, but I think the Canadians are in let's go win a cup mode, and I think the Canadians could be a very good team this year. I love the Dobson pickup on the defensive end. Condre Miller. This is just talking about the Hurricanes trying to make a run while they have this cap space. Well, picking up Condre Miller for 8 years, signing him away from the Rangers. That's another pretty good move. The Hurricanes already had a good defensive core, in my opinion. The Hurricanes' play style is very, very good for defense. And it just got better. Man, this Hurricanes team might be hard to score on, and they're going to be able to score pretty well. 2 big pickups by the Hurricanes and Condre Miller and Nikolaj Ehlers. 1 for 6 years, 1 for 8 years. And Condre Miller is only 25, so 8 years is only the 33. There's a lot of people who are still really productive players at that age. I really, really think we need to look out for the Hurricanes this season. I think this one may have went more under the radar, but J.J. Peterka getting traded to the Mammoth. The Mammoth, I think, strengthened their D-core last year. They didn't have a lot of scoring last year. Now they have J.J. Peterka. That should help. They're making some moves there. I really, really love the potential of J.J. Peterka. 20 to 30 goal guy. I think he could get 30 this year. Really, really like that move by the Mammoth. Zach Bolduc. I was just talking about the Canadians. The question for me this year is how much depth do the Canadians have? They have those young skilled players on the top 2 lines. They have a pretty good D-core. You know what trading for Zach Bolduc did? It gave him somebody that can score 20 goals in a middle 6 capacity. I think he probably slots into their third line, and it helps fill out some of the depth that the Canadians are going to need to accomplish some lofty things. I think it's another great pickup for the Canadians. Canadians could be a as big of a breakout team as they were last year making the playoffs. They could break out even more this season. And then another move that I really like, Trevor Zegras to the Flyers. He always has had this tantalizing talent. There's been lots of things said about him, and I just think that it wasn't working out for the Ducks. So the Ducks send him to the Flyers. Sometimes it just takes a new place, and guys seem to figure it out. The Flyers have some other good young pieces. Why not add Trevor Zegras, who's still pretty young himself, and see if you can't help him achieve the potential that he flashes, achieve the potential that he has, and really, really add to what is a solid young core of players. Let me know if you think I missed any big moves. I think these are the 10 biggest, or the 10 that will be the most consequential this season. Let me know in the comments if you think I forgot one, or you think there's one that is bigger. Storylines of the offseason. Obviously, one of the biggest stories was Ovechkin chasing down Gretzky last season. And even though he broke his leg, even though he broke his leg, he was able to come back in a pretty quick amount of time and still score 44 goals to get the 897 and break Gretzky's record. Can he stay healthy this year at the age of 41 years old, and can he make more history? He's not that far away from Gretzky's combined playoffs and regular season, right? Like if you combine playoff and regular season, Gretzky still has the goals lead. Ovechkin can still run that down. Can he stay healthy and do that? Ovechkin, you have to think if he plays just enough, he can hit 900. Only needs 3 goals to be the only NHL player ever to hit 900 career goals. Lots of other things. Can Ovechkin stay healthy and track down another Gretzky record? And how much distance can he put between his goal number and Gretzky's number? And is he going to retire at the end of the season as his contract will expire? What about Crosby? Crosby's in a similar vein. Can Crosby stay healthy? Is Crosby going to stay in Pittsburgh? I have more on that coming later. Does Crosby? What records does he have to? I mean, Crosby can become the Penguins' all-time leading scorer. He can still get to 1,700 points and become one of 9 players to do that. Like, Crosby still has a lot of history out there he can make himself. How much history does Crosby make before the end of the season? And you hear me say any other history here. I think that there is a lot of maybe things that people aren't talking about, or maybe some records in history that some big players can get to that I feel like is worth mentioning just out of respect for all that certain players have done for the game. For example, Ovechkin. I've mentioned some of the records he can hit. He can hit. He's 9 away from 1,500 regular season games. Brent Burns, a big legend of the game, is only 3 games away. Right? Anze Kopitar. More on him later. He's not that far away from 1,500 games. He has a couple of Kings franchise records he can break. Patrick Kane can break the record for most points by a United States-born player. And he can also set the assist record. Both of those things are feasible for him this year. Steven Stamkos looking to become a 600 goal scorer. Bobrovsky looking to set the record for most wins by a foreign-born goalie, like somebody not born in the United States. I guess I should clarify that because Canadians love hockey. They're the best country at it for a reason. Paul Maurice, Florida head coach, the same team that's trying to three-peat, is 70 games from becoming the second coach in league history to win at least 2,000 games. There's so many small things and small points of history that there could be a lot of records and a lot of very historic happenings this season that I, for one, am looking forward to keeping an eye on. Another big storyline. Can Florida capture the three-peat? It hasn't been done in decades. They've been in the 3 straight finals. Now, can they go to their 4th straight? And can they win it? They're already behind the 8 ball a little bit with some injuries. I think that they can tread water. They still have they have plenty of depth on that team. They have plenty of experience. It does take a toll on your body going to that many finals in a row. You know, it's very long seasons. If you count the preseason, it's September to June. While not all the other players are playing that long. And you're going to have the Olympics this year that I'm sure will take a toll on people's body. Can Florida get the three-peat? The Lightning had a chance to do it just a couple years ago, and we're not able to complete it, losing to the Avalanche after winning 2 in a row. They lost the Avalanche in the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm sure, as most of you remember. Can Florida capture the three-peat? Man, what a role the state of Florida hockey has been on between the Panthers and the Lightning. Olympic hockey is back. I think this is really exciting. There hasn't been an Olympic hockey tournament with NHL players since 2014 in Sochi. I'm so ecstatic that the NHL worked it out for the 2026 Olympics. It's February 11th to the 23rd, I believe. So obviously there's going to be a long layoff with no NHL hockey, but Olympic hockey, really, really good event. It's always something special when you have national teams going at it, and we very rarely get best on best national tournaments, especially when there's going to be over 100 NHL players. Not only is the event itself a storyline, but I'm going to be very interested in what players and what teams are most affected by Olympic hockey. I'm sure there's going to be some teams that play longer than others, but who can come out of Olympic hockey healthy? Who can get the most rest? What teams are going to be best ready to go coming out of the Olympic hockey break? I think that's going to be a large piece of how the second half, the post-Olympic break half of the season goes. But everybody should be ecstatic for Olympic hockey. It created some great moments in Sochi. Obviously, as an American, I love the TJ Oshie 7th round of the shootout winning against Russia in Sochi. But neither of those teams even medaled that year, if I remember correctly. Um, you can probably guess who did, though. So it's all to play for. Um, and it's just so I'm so happy that the NHL was able to figure out a way to make everybody happy with Olympic hockey, because the NHL players deserve to play, and it's just such a fantastic event when they do. What stars are going to adapt to new places the fastest? Some of this is people that were traded there during the trade deadline. Like, I would argue Mikko Rantanen. I'm having trouble speaking today. Yes, he was already with the Stars, but he wasn't there for that long, and I would argue he didn't. Um, I would argue he didn't really get 100% adjusted. It's hard in those situations. Can he get adjusted? How quickly does Marner get acclimated in Vegas? There's so many stars at new places, whether they went there at the end of last season or during free agency. A lot of solid, good players who can adapt to new places the fastest, and whoever is able to do that, I think that's the team that probably gets off to the best start for obvious reasons. What about the Penguins' big three? Obviously, I talked a little bit about Crosby. But Crosby, Malkin, and Letang have been teammates for 20 years in Pittsburgh. They've won 3 championships. They've from the minute those three were put together until just a couple seasons ago, they were one of the best, most consistent franchises in all the NHL. Is this the final year that they're together? And I think it's highly likely that it is. Um, the Penguins' big three, again, for everything that they've accomplished, I think Crosby wants to win, and I don't think the Penguins are in a position to do that. Maybe Crosby gets traded. Maybe Malkin retires at the end of the year. Maybe all three of them get traded, and the Penguins say, "We love you guys for your contributions, but we need to think about rebuilding because that's what's best for our future." And they blow it up, and none of those three guys are on the Penguins. It would feel kind of weird seeing any of those players in a jersey that's not Pittsburgh's. But I'm very interested to watch what happens in Pittsburgh this year, because maybe there's a world where the team of old heads figures out a way to make it into the playoffs, even if they're not championship contenders. But I think it's more than likely that by the trade deadline, they know that they aren't. And I'll be very interested to see what happens to the teammates of 20 seasons. I guess this is their 20th season. And then you heard me mention him when I was talking about history. Farewell to Kings legend Anze Kopitar. Won championships with the Kings. Arguably the best player the Kings have ever had for their whole career. I know there's been some really good players, but I would argue Kopitar spent really his whole career there, and the other guys didn't. Kopitar is going to be top 3 in a lot of their categories. He's done a lot for that franchise. He's been a stalwart in the league. And he is saying goodbye. He may not be the only legend of the game saying goodbye this season, but he is certainly the only one that has announced it ahead of time. Again, Burns is always a threat to retire. Brent Burns. Maybe Ovechkin could be done after this season, et cetera, et cetera. But Kings legend Anze Kopitar, it's going to be a farewell season for him. It's always sad seeing veterans go, but it has to happen eventually. Let's hope Kopitar gets a good send-off this season. Now that I've gone through some off-season moves, some big storylines, I'm going to get into actually looking at records, and I'm going to give you my predicted standings. And the NHL is some of the hardest ones to do because, it's the point system. It's not exact, but kind of where I see teams and the areas I see them finishing in. Let's get started with the Eastern Conference and the Metropolitan. As you can see in 24-25, the Capitals won by a mile, 111 points. Surprising everybody last year. Nobody thought they were going to be that good, but they were. Capitals with 111 points last season, getting the first overall seed in the East. Hurricanes and Devils won the other 2 spots for finishing second and third, and then none of the other teams in the Metropolitan made the playoffs. They got no wildcard teams. Blue Jackets were close at 89. Rangers kind of traded away a lot of key pieces. They still rebounded to 85. Islanders, after selling at the deadline, finished at 82. Penguins were last for a long time. They got around the Flyers at 80. And the Flyers, who did finish last at 76. And I think you're going to have the same group of teams again this year. Remember, if a team is in red, it means they make the playoffs. And in my predicted standings, it means I have them making the playoffs. And if they're in black, they do not. Um, I think the Hurricanes are might be the best team in the East this year, even at least in the regular season. I know that they're normally looked at as playoff chokers. They did make the Eastern Conference Finals over the Capitals, beat them in 5 games. It really wasn't that close. Hurricanes 108 points. I have them being in contention for the President's Cup this year, being in contention for the number 1 seed in the East. I think they could be that good, one of the best teams in the NHL. The Devils, I think, will have a little bit more health this year, and if the Devils are healthy, I think that they are a 100-point level team, and I think they get there this year. The Capitals, I have right around the 100-point mark here, putting them at 98. I think they're definitely competing with the Devils for second and third, but the Capitals had a lot of guys have career years last year. They still have a lot of young guys as well. If those young guys, their young players need to take a step forward, because if not, relying on guys to continue to do what they did last year when it was a lot of career years, probably not the best idea. I still think their defensive core is good. I still think Logan Thompson is good. Still a little bit worried about their scoring depth, but I don't think the Capitals quite replicate the success they had last season. But I still have them making the playoffs. Rangers, after selling off, I think that they have a new remade roster. I think they have a great coach. I don't think they have quite enough to make the playoffs. I think they'll be in contention most of the season, and it'll be close, but I don't know if they have quite enough. Maybe they make a move, or maybe another team gets injured. But as of right now, I don't see the Rangers making it. The Islanders, another very interesting team. They still have elite goaltending. Still worried about their ability to score. I know that they tried to make efforts towards making that better. Still don't think it's going to be great. Islanders going to hang around the playoff bubble all year, not quite make it. Blue Jackets, I think they're the same team they were last year, despite some of the changes. I'm still worried about a reliable goaltender for them. They still have one of the best defensemen in the game, but I think the Blue Jackets fall just short again. I think the Flyers, I don't think this is the year they break out. I think maybe next year. They're still a young team. They're still building something there. They still have good young pieces. I think Zegras can make that team better, despite maybe some of the antics some people have accused him for in the past. Give me the Flyers to kind of miss the playoffs. And I think the Penguins start kind of so-so. They're at the bottom, and then by the trade deadline, they are not going to make it. And I think that they might break up that big 3 that I just discussed, and they just blow it up and start all over again for the Penguins. Again, I think in the Metro, obviously 3 teams have to make it, and then I think they will have 3 teams in the wild card discussion. I just think that the Atlantic probably has better teams in the wild card discussion, and that's why I only have 3 making it from the Metro. And speaking of the Atlantic, they had 5 playoff teams last year. I think they have 5 playoff teams this year. Last year, the Maple Leafs won the division, finished with the 2nd overall seed. Lightning got by the Panthers late in the season. Panthers only finished with 98 points. Guess what? Still won the Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter for them. It's just about making the dance. Panthers had 2 really electric series to start the playoffs against the Lightning and Maple Leafs. And then after that, I think it got a little bit easier for them. Senators at 97 almost made the Panthers a wild card team. And then the Canadiens were the big shock of last season, making it all the way to the playoffs. They started a little bit behind, slowly made up ground. Other teams kind of collapsed around them, and they were sitting there, made the playoffs, losing in the first round. Red Wings, 86 points. They had too many losing streaks to overcome. I'm still worried about them defensively, just like they were bad defensively last year. Red Wings finished at 86. Sabres didn't finish last. They caught the Bruins, who intentionally gave up at the trade deadline. When's the Sabre? If you're Buffalo, at some point this young core has to take you to the playoffs, or you have to think about trading people. And I don't think this is the year to do it. It wasn't last year. Again, the Bruins, a team that blew it up at the trade deadline and is starting over. My predicted standings, I think the Maple Leafs, Lightning, and Panthers all season are going to be razor thin, fighting it out for the 1 seed. I think that they probably still finish 1, 2, and 3 in the division. Right now, I favor the same order as last season. But again, I have them three teams separated by 6 points. That's how close I think this division ends up being. And I'm taking a risk with the Maple Leafs. Matthews wasn't healthy last year. They lost Marner, and you can say what you want about the playoffs, but they were always really good in the regular season. I do think Roy will help. I think Matty Nyes is ready to step up for the Maple Leafs. I think the Maple Leafs have done very, very well. Hopefully, the goaltending keeps up again this season. That'll be another big story, I think, for the Maple Leafs. It historically has been under this core group led by Austin Matthews. But the Maple Leafs, I think, should still be the favorites with all of the injuries and other places to win the Atlantic Division. You know what the Lightning bring. You know what the Panthers bring. They have the same core as that they normally do. It's the same guys, the same names. They're always going to be a threat. A battle of Florida first round is always fun as well. I think the Canadians take another step forward this year, and I think they could potentially hit 100 points. I don't think they'll quite get there, but I really like the upgrades this Canadians team made. They were really hot towards the end of last season. A lot of those young players got going. I think that they take a step forward this year. Sometimes young players can be a little bit streaky, so I maybe see the Canadians being a little bit streaky. But overall, by the end of the year, that second half, I think that they get it fully figured out. I think they're operating on all cylinders. I think the team coalesces by the end of the season, and I think nobody is going to want to see this young Canadians team in the playoffs. And then the Senators, I think a similar team to what they were last year. I think that they're better than everybody in the Metro, all the wildcard teams in the Metro, and I think that they make the playoffs again for that reason, just as the 8th seed this time. Red Wings, I think, again, a lot of these teams, they try to make upgrades, but they also lose guys. I think the Red Wings hang around. I still don't know if they have enough defensively. I still think that the Red Wings can flat out score. I don't think that they can play good enough defense against some of these elite teams, and I think it keeps them out of the playoffs. The Bruins still lack scoring depth, in my opinion. And I also don't think that they're quite trying to compete this season yet either, even though they have some older guys. But the Bruins, I have at 81, not finishing last 2 years in a row. And then the Sabres, I think, just say the Sabres of normal. They weren't, despite the offensive talent they have, they weren't good on the power play last year. They're not good on the penalty kill. They don't have great goaltending. They don't have great defense. They're going to have to score a lot, and I just think that that's a hard way to win games. I think it's the same old Sabres this season. Moving on, let's get to the Western Conference in the Central Division. I think it's between the Central and the Atlantic Division again for the best divisions in hockey. Let's get into it. The Central Division had the President Cup champs last year with the Jets, 116 points. Stars at 106, Avalanche at 102. That is a great trio of top teams. And then the Wild and Blues making it into the playoffs with 97 and 96 points, taking 5 of the 8 playoff spots in the Western Conference. Utah Hockey Club just narrowly missing it. Obviously, they are the Mammoth now. Predators way underperformed expectations at 68. And Blackhawks at 61, kind of as expected for them. My predicted standings, you guys, in the comments, please bully me. I can't get away from the Stars. If you guys watched the episodes last year, you knew how much I loved the Stars and talked about them. And I don't want to love them this year, guys. I'm really trying not to because I'm worried. I think they have real concerns about their depth this year. I think they're great at the top, but their depth is not very good. So please bully me about liking the Stars again. But when I was doing these picks, I couldn't stay away. It's like a toxic relationship with me and the Stars. And I'm buying into them again this season, winning the President's Trophy with 113 points. However, I think their division rivals, the Avalanche, are right behind them. I think the Avalanche are going to be even better this year than they were last year. I think they made some good moves in free agency. I think they did a good job to re-sign somebody like a Brock Nelson. Nathan McKinnon and Brock Nelson as your number 1-2 punch at the center position is pretty darn good. I think the Jets lost a little bit. They still have the best goaltender in the league. They still have a great top line. I just still think that they're not hard to believe they're going to start off as hot as they did last year, but I don't know if they're going to be quite the same team. They're still going to be pretty good. They're still going to finish top 3, and not have to worry about the wild card. Give me the Jets at 105 points. And then I think even the Wild had a lot of injury problems last year. I'll be interested to see what happens with the goaltending. But I think the Wild, they're going to be healthy this year. I'm going to try and be positive for all the Minnesota Wild fans out there. I think the Wild are healthier. I think Kaprizov rewards the Wild for giving him such a big contract. And I think that the Wild respond and have a 100-point season. What a division this will be. I think the Blues, made some interesting moves in the offseason. Some I'm like, okay, some I didn't really like. I still think they're going to be good. I just don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I still think they'll be hovering around the wild card in the playoffs. Again, another team I'm a little bit worried about depth on. The Mammoth, I think, take a step forward this year and get even closer to making the playoffs. Some are saying they might make the playoffs. Maybe. But the Mammoth, I think, have a real chance to eclipse 90 points this season, potentially even 95 if everything goes right for them. I think they already had a pretty good defensive group. I think their offense got better in the offseason. They made some good moves for that. I think the Mammoth could be very competitive in this division. But part of the problem for the people in this division is how good the teams at the top of this division are and how hard it's going to be to pick up points off of their division. Some divisions are easier than others, making it harder or easier to collect points when you're in your intra-division battles. I think the Predators take a little bit of a step forward this year, but I still think they kind of need to reset their salary sheet. I don't think the team came together as well as they were hoping last year, and I think it's gonna hurt them for another year. I think they're a little bit better, but I don't know if they're going to be good enough to make a playoff run. And then the Blackhawks, I think they did a good job of adding a little bit of veteran leadership to that young core. They have plenty of young, talented guys, and if you're the Blackhawks, all you care about is keeping them healthy, and all you care about is helping them take their game to the next level. I think they're going to be better this year. They're going to be harder to beat. Still don't think they're playoff worthy, especially in this division. But I do think the Blackhawks continue to take a step forward. I don't think they're quite to their Canadiens level breakout, but maybe next year they get there. And I think Connor Bedard could even have a big season as well. And I guess, as you can see, I've already spoiled it with 4 teams making the playoffs in the Central. I have 4 of them making it in the Pacific. Yeah. Even though last year the Pacific only got 3, I think they do get 4 this year. But let's look at last year. Golden Knights with 110, one of the highest point totals in the league. Kings finishing ahead of the Oilers, but both of them in the 100s. Kings at 105, Oilers at 101. Another year where the Kings and Oilers match up in the first round, and another year where the Oilers take down the Kings. The Flames just missing the playoffs last season at 96 points. The Canucks, I love the Canucks to make the wild card last year, and they could never just get there. They just weren't quite good enough, had a couple injuries. Sad days. I think the Ducks, outperformed expectations last year, and they added some interesting pieces where they could be even better this year. Kraken, I think they were a little bit of a letdown. They a little bit underperformed, but not by too much. I don't know if too many people were expecting them necessarily to make the playoffs. I know I wasn't. And then the Sharks continuing to tank and be a really bad team last year, and they were successful. The Oilers, I think, win this division this year. I keep saying the Oilers are going to get by the Knights eventually. Maybe I think this is finally the year. The Oilers, I think, are working on getting better depth. I still have a little bit questions about their goaltending, but I think it's a more sure situation than it was just 2 or 3 years ago. I think the Knights are also going to have some growing pains at first, potentially figuring out how Marner fits into the group. But I think this is a race between the Oilers and Golden Knights, and how fun that race would be. Kings, I have winning the division again. Anze Kopitar's last season. Maybe they can make a special playoff run. Unlikely, but maybe. But I do have the Kings finishing 3rd in the division again. They just are not. They're good. They're just not quite good enough to compete with the Knights and the Oilers, in my opinion. And then I had the Flames making it this year. I think they've made enough upgrades around the margins, and I think they're a little bit better in a lot of ways. And I think just being a little bit better is going to make the difference, be the difference between them making the playoffs this year and missing it last year. I don't know if they're a threat to do much once they get there, but I think the Flames have enough pieces, and I think they've made enough upgrades this offseason, even if it doesn't look like a whole lot on paper, to get into the playoffs. The Ducks, I think, threaten the playoffs. I don't think they're going to quite make it, but I really, really like some of the veterans they brought in. I think the Ducks have a great mix of veteran and young talent infused. I think that it's going to make them good this year, and I think it's going to help them going forward. I don't think the Ducks quite make it, but I think they're right there, and they also have a good head coach. The Canucks, I think, are kind of like they were last year, just not quite good enough to sit in the playoffs, but not quite good enough to get a top pick either. They're kind of in this middle ground. I think the Canucks are close to being good. They have good players in good positions. They're just not quite there, just off by a little bit here and there, and that's sometimes all it takes. The Kraken, I think, are in a similar area as last year. I think they are trying some things. I think they tried some things this offseason. I don't think they're good enough to make it. And you can see I have them actually finishing seventh, partially just because there's a lot of teams in this division that I think are close and in similar spots. And then the Sharks I have finishing last. I think that's kind of the freebie. Again, young teams are going to continue to take steps forward, but small steps, not big steps for the Sharks. I think their young guys get going a little bit, but I don't think they're going to get going enough to make any real threat at the playoffs. Another season spent in the lottery for the Sharks. Now, I have my predicted playoffs. I'm not saying this is the exact seeds, and there's some teams I think that I say could surprise me that could make it in. I don't know. But based on the predictions I just gave you, I put together the playoffs, and I'll go ahead and show you how I have the playoffs going based off of the standings that I gave you. Again, this is a theoretical playoff bracket. Guys, I told you, please bully me for the Stars, okay? Please bully me for the Stars. I did it all last year, and I'm doing it again, and I swore that I wasn't going to do it because they keep letting me down. But I did it again. I can't help myself, even though I literally said earlier, I'm not sure if they have the depth required to make a deep playoff run, and I still did it. And they don't have the salary cap space anymore because they spent it all re-signing players. Please bully me in the comments for the Stars, unless you think the Stars are actually good. Then maybe be like, hey, this is the year, The Stars are turning into a team they share their city with, the Cowboys. This is our year. Okay, enough of that rant. This is my theoretical playoff bracket. And unfortunately, it's very similar to last year and what happened last year. I have the Hurricanes winning the 1 seed, beating the Senators, and a matchup of the 2 and 3 in the Metro. I think the Devils are good, but not good enough to get by a veteran Caps team. Maybe the Caps by this point know it's Ovechkin's last ride, and that empowers the team a little bit. In the Battle of Florida, give me the Panthers. I think the Panthers will be healthy by then. The Panthers aren't afraid to make the moves they feel are necessary to win the Stanley Cup. And when you get to the playoffs, the Panthers just seem like they take their game to another level, and they know how to make it through the playoffs. Give me the Panthers to win the Battle of Florida. I'll tell you what, this Maple Leafs Canadiens first round would be the most interesting first round matchup on here. Nobody's changing my mind about that. What a group of fan bases this is to see go against each other. I think the Canadiens could push them to 6 or 7 games, but I think right now the Maple Leafs are probably still the team better suited to win in the playoffs, and the Maple Leafs make it to the second round. Let's finish off the Eastern Conference in a rematch of last year. The Hurricanes and the Capitals. I think the Hurricanes are even better than they were last year. I think minus doing something unforeseen, the Capitals are relatively the same, and I have the Hurricanes advancing, which kills me because normally they're the team that chokes all the time. But I really don't think it matters who's coming out of this Metro with how good this Panthers team is. Panthers and Maple Leafs, I think the Panthers send home the Maple Leafs again. And then in a battle of last year's Eastern Conference Finals teams, the Hurricanes and the Panthers, I think the Panthers wipe. Maybe the Hurricanes take it to 6 games, but I still think a healthy Panthers team, which is where I think they could be at this point, take the Hurricanes out and advance to their 4th straight Stanley Cup final, probably absolutely exhausted by that point. Now let's look at the Western Conference. Dallas and Calgary. I don't think there's much argument there. I think Dallas wins that one. A great, interesting matchup between the Avalanche and Jets. I think the Avalanche win. I think the Avalanche and Stars are two of the three best teams in the Western Conference, and they have to keep them facing each other before the conference finals because of the way the playoffs are set up. Battle of Las Vegas and Los Angeles. How interesting. I think the Knights win that, ending Anze Kopitar's career. And then Oilers and Wild is actually, I think, a very intriguing first-round matchup. I think the Wild pushed the Oilers a little bit, but the Oilers would get by. Oilers and Knights in the playoffs. That's never happened before either. Give me the Oilers. It seems, and we end up with something very familiar on the other side in the Western Conference as well. The Stars and the Oilers. Never seen that one before. I think this time the Stars finally take them down in advance. And then between the Stars and the Panthers, I think the Panthers' long off seasons keep up with them. I think the entire NHL gets behind the Stars because nobody wants to see the Panthers three-peat, and I think the Stars take it from the Panthers. I can't believe I did it again. I'm not going to get down that rant. But let me know in the comments below who your favorite to win the NHL title is this season. Let me know if you think it's the Stars or if I'm crazy. Let me know if you think the Panthers take it or if you think there's another top team like the Hurricanes or Oilers that can also finally get it done. Again, I have this toxic relationship with the Stars. I can't say no to them. Oh, well. But I actually think the Stars are one team that could decline this season. Just theoretical. Obviously, once the season starts, I'm able to watch these teams. I'm sure some of this will change. But if you take the standings that I gave you, this is how it turns out, and this is how I would see that this playoff bracket going. Let me know in the comments what you think, as always. And then last, I love to start you with an early season power rankings and go through some of the awards. Early season power rankings, as I see it, Panthers. I know they're hurt and banged up, but they've won 2 straight titles. They've been to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. You can't argue that they're not the best franchise in the NHL right now. And for that reason, I'll start them at 1, even if they don't stay there very long. Give me the Oilers. They have 2 of the best players in hockey on the same team. Give me the Oilers at 2. And they're pretty good at making the Stanley Cup finals as well. The Stars I have at 3, Hurricanes at 4. It's almost like those are the 4 Final Four teams or something from last season, and many of them probably got better. The Golden Knights, they seem like they're always really competitive. I think they got better in the offseason, adding Marner to an already pretty good core. Knights rounding out the top 5. Rest of the top 10, the Maple Leafs at 6, despite losing a star player. I think they're going to be better. I think they're going to have young players step up. Give me the Maple Leafs in 6. Avalanche, I think, will be better and could easily break the top 5, being a 7th. The Lightning still hanging around with their older core in 8th. The Jets, last year's President's Trophy winners, lost a big piece or two. They still have a great goaltender. They still have a good first line. Jets aren't going to fall off a cliff too bad. Give me Jets at 9. And last year, the team with the second most points in the NHL, the Washington Capitals, I have at 10th, as they have a very similar roster as they did last season. Those are my top 10 teams starting the year. And then for the award races, one last thing. I know I asked you to comment. You don't have to comment all the things I asked you to. Just I ask 1 or 2. Let me know who you think the favorites are for these awards as I go through and give mine. The Hart Trophy. I think the Avalanche are better this year, and because of that, I think Nathan MacKinnon actually has a chance to get it, and I think he does get it in an era where it's been very, very hard to get Hart trophies. It's been a very competitive award. I have Nathan MacKinnon winning it this year, with Connor McDavid finishing 2nd. The Vezina. What a surprise. Hellebuck. Until otherwise, Hellebuck, at least in the regular season, is the best goalie in the NHL. And until further notice, it's his award to lose. I do think Jake Oettinger has a good year. There I go with the Stars again. Jake Oettinger finishing 2nd. I almost put Pick Shesterkin, but I'm still a little bit worried about the Rangers' defense in front of him. The Norris Trophy, Cale Makar. Until further notice, it's Cale Makar to lose. He's pretty well established, the best defenseman in hockey. Give me Cale Makar. And then runner-up, another guy who's always near the top of these defense lists, Quinn Hughes. Kind of chalky, I know. The Selkie, I think, is Nico Hischier. He was having a great defensive season last year, battled some uh, injuries. Nico Hischier. With a runner-up, I think Sam Reinhart has another big season for the Panthers this year. Calder Cup, best rookie. After the way he finished last year, it's hard for me not to think it's going to be Ivan Demidov for the Canadians. And runner-up, the American Ryan Leonard, playing for the Capitals. I think Ryan Leonard finds success on the second or third line for the Capitals and has a good season this year. But I think this is Demidov's award to lose. Rocket Richard, the leading goal scorer. Austin Matthews didn't have a season he desired last year. Whether, battling through some injuries, not scoring as much as he wants to. I think he reminds everybody who Austin Matthews is this year and gets another Rocket Richard trophy. And I think the Bruins are going to struggle to score this year. I don't think they have that much scoring depth. Because of that, I believe Pastrnak scores a lot of goals this year and finishes second behind Austin Matthews. Rocket Richard could be very, very competitive this year. The Jack Adams Award for Best Coach, I think Martin St. Louis could get it. If the Canadians are as good as I think they are, Martin St. Louis better win it. That's who I have getting it. And then I have Joe Quenneville as my runner-up. A couple of good head coaches with young teams there. And then the President's Cup, well, I already kind of showed you my points. I think the Dallas Stars are first. And while I think I had the Hurricanes third in total points, I think that the Hurricanes probably still capture the runner-up trophy this year and are just as competitive. What's funny is the Stars and the Hurricanes are both two sides of that whole Mikko Rantanen ordeal last season, and they both seem to be okay this year. Those are my picks for the power rankings and this season's award races. Again, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about that. I'm sure it'll be civil down there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please, please, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm so excited for the NHL season. I love hockey. It's the best postseason in professional sports. It's going to be a great year. A lot of great players. Olympic break in the middle. Olympic hockey is always fantastic. Keep an eye out. I have 2 more episodes of the podcast coming this week, so keep an eye out for those. You can probably guess what both of them are if you have been listening long enough. Find a couch this week. Watch some NHL. Thank you for taking time out of your days, your weeks, your lives, and for listening. Stay safe because it's a crazy world out there. Take care of yourself and take care of your families. Peace out, everybody.